In a faraway kingdom lived a king with 3 sons. As he grew old, he pondered who should inherit his throne. He decided to give them a test. He called his sons and said, "My dear boys, I want you to travel the world and each bring back a dog that is small enough to fit inside a teacup. The one who brings the finest dog will be my heir." The princes set off on their quest. The 2 older princes, full of confidence, rode off on magnificent horses, leaving their youngest brother behind. The youngest prince, kind and humble, felt a bit disheartened. He wasn't sure where to even begin looking for such a tiny dog. He wandered aimlessly until he found himself deep in a forest. As night fell, he saw a light twinkling in the distance and walked towards it. He discovered a grand, mysterious castle. Hesitantly, he knocked on the door. To his surprise, it swung open on its own. He stepped inside and called out, but only his own voice echoed back. The castle was splendid, with tables laden with food and halls filled with treasures, but it was completely empty. Or so he thought. As he explored, a white cat with intelligent green eyes padded silently up to him. The cat seemed to understand his hunger and thirst, leading him to a grand dining hall. After he ate, the cat guided him to a comfortable bedroom. The prince was grateful and, feeling safe, soon fell asleep. The next morning, the cat woke him and asked, "What brings you to my castle, young prince?" The prince was astonished that the cat could speak, but he explained his father's quest for a tiny dog. The cat listened patiently and said, "Stay with me for a year, and you will have what you seek." The prince, having nowhere else to go and feeling a strange sense of trust, agreed. He spent a wonderful year in the castle. The white cat was his constant companion. They explored the enchanted gardens, read books in the vast library, and played games. The prince grew very fond of the cat and forgot all about his quest. One day, the cat reminded him the year is almost over. "It is time for you to return to your father." The prince was sad to leave his new friend. The cat, seeing his sorrow, said, "Do not worry. I will give you what you came for." She led him to a small, ornate box. Inside, nestled on a velvet cushion, was the most perfect, tiny dog he had ever seen, small enough to fit in a teacup. The prince was overjoyed. He thanked the cat profusely and promised to visit again. The cat simply smiled and gave him a magnificent horse for his journey home. When the youngest prince arrived at the palace, his 2 older brothers were already there, showing off their own tiny dogs. But when the youngest prince opened his box, everyone gasped. His dog was by far the smallest and most beautiful. The king was impressed. But he wasn't ready to make a decision. "You have all done well," he said, "but there is a second test. Go back into the world and bring me a piece of cloth so fine it can be pulled through the eye of a needle." The 2 older princes rushed off again, eager to outdo their brother this time. The youngest prince, however, knew exactly where to go. He returned to the enchanted castle in the forest. The white cat greeted him like an old friend. He told her about the new quest, and she replied, "Stay with me for another year, and you shall have it." And so, he stayed. The second year was even more pleasant than the first. He and the cat became the closest of friends. They shared stories, laughter, and a quiet companionship that filled the empty halls of the castle. When the year was up, the prince was even more reluctant to leave. The cat, understanding his heart, presented him with a walnut. "Inside this shell," she said, "is what you need." The prince bid a tearful farewell and rode back to his father's kingdom. His brothers were already there. Proudly displaying their fine silks and linens, they scoffed when they saw him holding nothing but a simple walnut. "Is that the best you could find?" They laughed, but the king motioned for him, too. "Come forward." The prince cracked open the walnut, and from it, he pulled a shimmering, endless stream of cloth. It was so fine and delicate that it passed through the eye of a needle with ease. The court was speechless. The king, amazed, declared, "My youngest son has proven his resourcefulness. But there is one final test. The one who brings home the most beautiful princess shall be king." The older princes were thrilled. This was a test they were sure to win. They rode off immediately to seek out famous beauties in neighboring kingdoms. The youngest prince, feeling a mix of hope and sadness, journeyed back to the castle of the White Cat. He found her waiting in the garden. He explained the final task, and his voice was heavy. "But," he said, looking at her, "I don't want to bring back any other princess. I've grown to care for you more than anyone." The cat's green eyes seemed to shimmer. "Then you must do one thing for me," she said softly. "You must cut off my head." The prince was horrified. "Never." He cried. "I could never harm you." But the cat insisted. "If you truly care for me, you must trust me. It is the only way." With a heavy heart and tears in his eyes, the prince drew his sword. He closed his eyes and, with a swift motion, did as she asked. The moment he did, a brilliant light filled the garden. Where the White Cat had been, there now stood the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. She was a princess. Freed from an evil curse that had turned her and her court into cats, the empty castle, suddenly, came to life with servants and courtiers, all celebrating their liberation. The princess explained everything. She was the rightful ruler of the enchanted castle, and his love and trust had broken the spell. Overjoyed, the prince asked her to return with him to his father's kingdom. She agreed, and they traveled back together, not on a magical horse, but in a grand royal carriage, followed by the entire restored court of the enchanted castle. When they arrived, his older brothers were there with the princesses they had found. But the moment the enchanted princess stepped out of her carriage, all other beauty paled in comparison. The king, seeing not just her beauty, but the true love between her and his son, knew his decision was made. He declared his youngest son the new king. The young prince and the enchanted princess were married, and they ruled the kingdom with the same kindness and wisdom they had shown each other. The two older brothers, humbled by the experience, were given important roles in the kingdom, and they all lived together in peace and happiness. And it all started with a quest for a tiny dog and the kindness of a prince who befriended a mysterious white cat. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more tales from around the world. See you next time.